Hey guys, and welcome to the Lessons Learned Business Edition podcast. Today I have with me Stuart Waddington, and before I get on to him introducing himself, because he's got lots to talk about, don't forget to like, share, and follow the podcast. And yeah, subscribe, share it with your friends if you've got any interesting nuggets of information that Stuart says during the podcast. Then yeah, make sure you try and implement them into your own business journey, and hopefully we can help others. Stuart, time for you to introduce yourself.
Hi, Justine, thank you so much for having me on the podcast, by the way. I think we joked before saying about it's nice being on the other side because, as you know, you've been on my podcast. And it's great being on somebody else's podcast and sharing my journey. And it's been so useful in my journey listening to other people's stories. So this is almost my way of giving back, which sounds a bit bizarre saying that, but I'm a little bit further down the line than I ever thought I would be as well. So my name's Stuart Waddington. I own a company called TDL. I've got several different things that I do. I've got a business that I started when I left the military. My background's the Royal Air Force. We're just about slowing that down a little bit now. My wife took over that business and then we're really pulling that in. I've got my own consultancy company, Stardiv Training Limited, as well as TDL. And there's lots of juggling of balls and changing of hats and stuff. I'm in the Northwest, so I'm not too far from you. I've got 4 children and life is hectic. I've got 5 to 12. Yeah, it's very busy, but I love it. And if I'd have, we'll probably dig into this, but if I'd have told myself 5 years ago when I left the military, or even college, university, leaving school, that I was doing what I do now, I honestly wouldn't believe you. So yeah, there's a lot to dig into there with regards to the lessons in the, as I say all the time, the ups and downs, twists and turns of business and life.
Well, it's what makes business at the end of the day, isn't it? It's the bits that you don't expect and how you react to them, I think, personally.
Yeah, 100%. And again, you don't know what you don't know. Yes. And even this morning on the school run, me and my daughter were chatting, and she just said, like, how do you know this? Or how do you know a lot about that? And I just say it's experience. And she's only 8. And she just thinks, how do you know all this stuff, Daddy? And I was like, well, it's just from putting yourself out there,
Asking
listening, asking questions and learning. So,
there's a great thing, isn't there, about the British love to answer questions, but British don't like to ask questions. So a lot of people will sit there and wonder and ponder about things and not ask the question. But when you actually get asked to it, you want to answer the question. You want to educate people. So it's just about getting over that little burden of asking questions and learning. What does TDL stand for?
It stands for the Digital Leader. So we transitioned through a great business relationship that I do a lot of networking. I'm really an advocate for getting out there and speaking to people, connecting with people. And I almost had to do that when it was the pandemic. Yeah. And I had to go onto LinkedIn and start building what I didn't realize at the time was my personal brand and your voice and that consistency over time and content and speaking to people. And we came across somebody who we actually brought into the business. And how I simplify it is I've got a leadership and development training background in the military. So I came out and was starting to do that outside what I call the military bubble. And but it was an analog, old school version of, I think in the pandemic, the L&D world, leadership and development world, was just picked up and plonked into the digital world. We all had these cameras on our computers, and it took a global pandemic for us to turn them on. Yeah. And start. And then the L&D world, we had to go into the virtual world to train, workshops, webinars, coaching sessions, etc. So I was very much on that wave because of my credibility from the background in the military and bringing a different perspective and a different language into the business world. And it was great, but it still felt a bit clunky for me. Yeah. I've got this big thing about validity of results and validity of feedback. And what I didn't know then was the amazing opportunities that technology is bringing and giving leadership and management and training in general a shove in the right direction. So TDL came from my old-fashioned, as I still say now, my consultancy, because we spent a day, and I always remember this day. I spent a day with our now tech, one of the tech founders, Craig, and Eli, who's one of the other co-founders. He is one of my ex-colleagues in the military. He was way ahead of me at senior instructor role when I was going through training. And we spent that day looking at what we get involved with in companies' L&D, what we see the future requirements, future challenges, and Craig absorbed all that. And because he's been in tech for 20, 25 years, building teams in the tech world. And there was that real meeting of understanding and going, right, okay, I hear what you need there. This is what we could do. So we're actually now partnered with Microsoft. We're actually making a bit of a shift in what we're doing, because one of the areas that we were looking at through TDL has really opened up an opportunity. So we're actually looking, as we record this, and we chatted before we jumped on this, doing a little bit of a tweak and a rebrand.
Okay.
Which is, it's what happens, isn't it? Twists, turns, ups and downs. It's reacting to some stuff. So yeah.
Again, it's something that you've not necessarily planned. So with the rebrand, what kind of direction are you going in now, and what kind of inspired you to? Is it just because the opportunity came about that you're now inspired to go that way, or is it something that's always kind of been on your agenda?
Well, I'm super excited about this, because when we first started, and it was only, let's say, 6 months ago, we started TDL. And because of our big credibility in delivery in leadership and development training, we were leading with that. So we were delivering leadership and development training, and we just so happened to have this great tech product behind us, the enabler tool that's different and new, and it makes us future focused. And then we've gone to market, we started having conversations, we're pitching to companies, and we've gone, maybe we're missing a trick here. There's an opportunity to grow and scale and have a massive impact on the industry. So what we're now doing is we're flipping that around. So we're now a tech company, which is providing, and we're already powering other L&D companies. Okay. So we're now partnering with L&D companies, saying, you have got 10 plus years in the industry, you're doing some phenomenal programs. But what typically happens, they've got loads of plugins. So to give you an example of scale, we're now looking at being part of a pitch of a company that's in Europe, and they're pitching for a 2,000 plus person development program for a global company. And they can't do that without our tech enabler, which is plugged into Microsoft. And a lot of companies, you can imagine, if we're in the L&D space, there's thousands of L&D companies, whereas because we're in the tech space now, there's probably about 10 to 15 other companies doing what we're doing globally.
Yeah.
However, we've looked and done our research. A lot of them are in L&D, but they're more in the well-being and mental health space, potentially for better habits on tech and blocking out your time and looking after your mental health, etc. But the ones who are specifically, say, against us are similar. They're using their own apps and their own websites. So you've got in that engagement piece. As soon as we know people have to log in or scroll or click, you start to lose people. Yeah. So we're bringing that enabler to you through Microsoft. So all the big companies are powered by Teams, Microsoft 365. So we're going to be able to show up and turn up in your workspace. So companies are really keen that you're going to get that engagement and that ease of use, if you know what I mean.
I think that's one of the biggest concerns from businesses, isn't it? Especially larger scale companies, is when they're implementing tech, is how it can, if it's not done correctly, it can completely destruct the business over a period of time. Whereas if you've got that facility to plug in, especially to things like Microsoft, etc., it actually makes it all so much more seamless.
Yeah. And also having some phenomenal conversations at the minute, and just listening to myself speak in the last 6 months and even the last couple of weeks, again, blows my mind that I've been able to get this knowledge over that time, because it's surrounding myself with the right people. And I have that kind of, well, how can we challenge this, and how can we change this? So for example, AI, you know, and I know, is a big topic at the minute.
Yeah.
So we're saying that we're using Microsoft at its full capacity, and we pitch to companies and they're like, that's really interesting, because even how you've shown us that just shows that we're just scratching the surface of our use of Teams. Honestly, they're using it for calendars, emails, and conversations like this.
Yeah.
So we're able to, there's a consultancy arm of the business where we go and whip you into shape with your use and efficiency of Microsoft. But using AI, like we're having conversations about using AI for the real positives in productivity. So some of the AI enablers of what we're able to give to companies, they've already got some of them within Microsoft, but we're able to identify gaps in your calendar, areas that, for example, 360 feedback. We've got a 360 feedback tool that we've just developed because there was a need for it. And having those conversations about making things more valid, more efficient, more useful. So we're going to show you through AI the people in your business that you've maybe spent so much time with, and they're going to be giving you some feedback on your 360. But we're also going to be identifying the people that you haven't spent a lot of time with. So we're going to get them to give you some feedback. So whereas before you're just giving 5 names and I'll just randomly ask somebody, there's a process and a reason behind it. And then we're going to give them some training and some best practice on 360 before they have to fill it out. And we're going to identify, the AI will put it in their diary when they have some time and space. And we're going to promote that they have a walk before they fill it out. So all those sort of things, we're going to get the validity of feedback higher using the tech capability.
Trim people a bit better.
Yes. Yeah.
Obviously, you've had so much going on from transition from starting to where you are now. What is probably from when you started your career and working from Army, I suppose, what's been your biggest lesson that you've learned that you now feel like you've implemented into your business life now?
I would say one of the biggest things, I always remember when I started networking, and there was a couple of things that I've been told lots of different messages, and one that I sort of honed in on was potentially, I can see where this came from. It wasn't through a bad advice as such, but this person had been out of the military 7 years, and they were being very selective on their audience and selective on their social media and who they connected with. And I was like, that totally makes sense. Be careful who you connect with. But I was really slow then, as you can imagine, because I didn't know many people. I wasn't networking, and it sort of slowed me down a little bit. And I totally get that. Obviously now I'm 5 years on, I'm a little bit more selective on who I'm connecting with. There's a lot of people that will just connect with you on LinkedIn, etc. So I give people advice now. Go and speak to as many people as you can. Connect with as many people as you can, because further down the line, you'll then know who your audience is, who the best people are to connect with. So that was a little bit of my lesson that I didn't realize was happening as it played out. But then I also remember I did a post yesterday. I've just on recording this got the Cheshire Chair of the Institute of Directors, which again, thank you very much. But I talk about being outside your comfort zone. But then that links into what I'm just about to say now, that if you're in the room and you're the most successful person in the room, or you've got the most knowledge in the room, you're in the wrong rooms. So I remember starting off my networking journey, giving my business card out and passing them around the table. And I was thinking, this is just not the right place to be. So I spoke to the right people. I listened to who was credible, who was the people I needed to speak to. And I gravitated and started to connect with those people. And that's one of the reasons I ended up in the Institute of Directors in the first place, because I've always been in that training and development world where the people who are going to make the decisions to have me in are at senior leadership, director, business owner level. So I've always been going out there to try and find those rooms and those connections. Mm-hmm. And I remember somebody saying to me, Stu, you need to be on LinkedIn. And it took me 6 months to get onto LinkedIn, because I was like, I don't need a job, I'm doing my business. And obviously, as you know, that has changed massively in 5 years, but it's starting to change then, hence why my reaction to somebody saying you need to be on LinkedIn. But honestly, I do a lot of help and support for people that are transitioning out of the military. And if you speak to anybody that's done it, and it's my message as well, is speak to people, connect with people. People are so willing to give you their time and advice and guidance and connect you in with somebody. If they can't help you, you'll go, I know somebody who can help you.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's where I would say, just to get yourself and stretch yourself, as I am doing the IOD. The reason I've got that is because of my network and connections. I can start getting some really good rooms together with some really good people doing some really good things.
Yeah.
But I was quite honest in my interviews when I was asked about governance and policy. It's like, I haven't really got much clue about governance and policy, but hence why I'm in the Institute of Directors, because I'm going to surround myself by people who are in big companies who are talking about governance and policy all the time, and I'll just sit there like a sponge and soak it all up and get all the information. So, but I love it. I love learning from others.
What about I suppose anyone that is starting out in business and the searching for networking groups? And we all know, I mean, I've been through loads of different types of networking groups, as you have, as you've mentioned, and some are great and some are not so great for certain industries and stuff. Have you got any advice as to how to kind of get to the point where you know you can understand which networking group is going to be most beneficial to you? So you're saying surround yourself with the certain people. How do people distinguish that?
For me personally, I'm a real people observer, and I get a feel. That's why, as you say, I just go to some of them, and look and listen at the room. So there's one organisation that I went to, and it was very trades people. So I was like, well, I see I'm not the person here. I know people, and people can refer people and give you pushes in the right direction, but it just didn't fit right. And then over time, and again, just go out there and go and speak to people and go and say what you're after, and people will point you in the right direction. I'm part of a club at a membership. The other membership organisation I'm in is called the Sporting Club. My background is sport, and I love sport. And when we talk about high performance and high performing individuals, high performing teams, so that is a really good fit for me personally. But also the people who are in those rooms are at a certain level in business. They've got a shared interest in sport, and we can have great conversations, and they have great speakers. And I'm going to get out of bed to go into those events, and they're all over the UK. So it gets me to travel. I travel quite a lot of work anyway. So I happen to, every now and again, the two organisations I'm in typically are in the big cities that I do my work in or do my meetings in. And every now and again, more frequently recently, actually, which is quite bizarre, there happens to be something on, or some people that are part of those two organisations that I can meet up with, or I know that I need access to offices and high caliber venues, and through the memberships, I've got access to some phenomenal areas, and without having to do this sometimes at an office.
Yeah.
So yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, totally, 100%. What about you're saying like how busy you are, you've got loads of things going on. Anyone that listening is going to go, what, you've got kids, you've got a family, you've got about 20,000 jobs that you're working, you're spinning plates. Obviously you enjoy it and you've got that balance. How do you work out, or how do you find that work-life balance? And it's more for advice to people that are feeling like they're spinning loads of plates. How do they find that work-life balance?
So after this interview, I'm going to play golf for the afternoon. So honestly, as much as like my wife mentioned this quite a lot, that I do get a bit of stick for playing golf every now and again, but I play golf. It's really good for business development. I really enjoy it because I've got a sports background and I sit behind a computer now.
Yeah.
And I do a lot of meetings and I sit in the office. So I don't do that very well. And I say I get brain fog and there's so many things going on. And yesterday I was just like, there's so much gone on today, so much discussions about business. I'd actually said for May, June that I was so busy that some people, I was like, you have to wait till the first week of July to get some of my time. And it sounds dead, but it's just reality of when you spin in so many plates. So I do enjoy, I don't play golf at weekends or evenings because I've got a family and they all do clubs and sport, funnily enough. But it's my sort of time out, and I put my foot on the ball and go, right, just enjoy this time. But cleverly, there is a link to business when I'm playing 99% of the time. So I'm playing with this afternoon one of our associates that's closely linked to the development of the business, and we can have a nice time talking sociably, but also business-wise as well. Because it is challenging. Honestly, it is challenging having that kind of slow down element, and I'm very conscious of presence and time with the family and children. It doesn't always work. It is very challenging, don't get me wrong, and I don't always get it right. But again, I'm conscious of it, so I can do something about it and get better in the future.
Yeah, great advice. What can you just give us a little roundup then of how people can find you, where they can find about your business? Obviously, you're going through this big transition at the moment, when to kind of expect it all, and then we'll round up the podcast.
Yeah, so this is funny, isn't it? Because talking about lessons, I laugh when I say about the social media stuff now, because I said recently that when I left the military, I was just on Facebook to connect with people I met through my military journey. So now, knowing that I run my own podcast, we have social media on pretty much even TikTok, Twitter, LinkedIn. So the best one, my playgrounds, I call it, is LinkedIn. So go and check me out on LinkedIn. You'll see then the development of the business. You'll see then the podcast episodes, the amazing people I have on. And then on Instagram, my name, Stuart_Waddington. Then that'll link you off to then I feel like I need to be in a position to tell you what the name and stuff is, but we're not even that close yet. So, but it'll happen. On this coming out, there'll be a lot of things, and we might even be able to send you the link to it in the show notes.
We'll put your links to everything anyway underneath this podcast, and obviously check out Stuart's podcast. I've been on it. It's a great podcast, some great people on there. You've got an array of people. What type of people, or what are you trying to get across in your podcast? So
it's a diverse conversation around leadership. So stories and experts in their field. So we've had the founder of Reebok talk about his journey, which was phenomenal. And we got global CEOs of businesses, but we've also had a sleep expert. We've had a violinist, because the violin is the lead of an orchestra, which I didn't tug on to till my very good friend, who's a violinist, was like, I do a bit of leadership. And we've had Olympic gold medalists, some phenomenal people talking about their leadership journey. And storytelling is so important and so inspirational when you can listen to something like that and go, I can relate to that. And like you said at the start about, I can maybe take one little nugget of information and embed that into my leadership journey. So that's what it's about.
Well, great. I'll make sure that I share it beneath the podcast, and everyone does have to go and give it a listen. It's great. Thanks for coming on. Really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.
Lots of information people can take from that. So can't wait for it to go out, and good luck with the business journey.
Thank you.
No problem.